Something brought you here, and it wasn't by chance, because even without realizing it, your vibrational field has already started to shift since you clicked on this video. And the craziest part, you haven't even done anything yet, but you're already activating a force that humanity has forgotten. Thoth recorded this, a forbidden technique, hidden even from the initiates themselves, capable of making the universe give you everything effortlessly. No rituals, no requests, no rushing. And I'm about to give you the first code. You don't conquer through force, you conquer through alignment, and the more you try, the further away you get. Sounds contradictory, right? But that's how the law works. Thoth didn't create through action, he created through vibration. And there's a moment in the records of the Halls of Amenti that proves this. He stopped, he stayed in total silence, and when he stopped, reality bent. And that's exactly what's going to start happening to you if you stay until the end. Because there's something no one told you. There's a point inside you that activates this force. And you're about to find out where it is. But first, we need to break the biggest lie that's sabotaging your vibration right now. When you become still, the universe speaks. When you stop wanting, everything is given to you. Now that you've already felt that point of silence thought accessed, it's time to reveal one of the biggest forms of self-sabotage that keeps people from getting everything they want the most. And the most dangerous part is that it looks like a virtue. It looks like discipline, looks like courage, but behind that appearance lies the deepest block to manifestation. It's effort. Misguided effort. The idea that only those who suffer, who burn out, who race against time, as if the universe owed them something, are the ones who achieve anything. But Thoth was clear. What is forced gets lost. Because the universe doesn't respond to the amount of effort, but to the vibrational frequency that the effort emits. The trap starts early. Since childhood, you're taught that you need to earn things, you need to prove your worth, you need to wear yourself out to get the bare minimum. What no one tells you is that this effort, when it comes from a misaligned place, generates more scarcity than results. It's like trying to swim against an invisible current. The more you struggle, the further you drift from the shore. And the worst part is that this resistance isn't visible. It forms in the subtle field behind the scenes of your energy, with every thought of obligation, every desperate attempt to control the timing of things, every time you try to force a path that's not flowing, a tension sets in. And that tension creates friction. It vibrates in disconnection. It vibrates in lack. It vibrates in doubt. And all of that is picked up by the field. You might even say you believe. You might do affirmations, visualizations, prayers. But if inside your energy is coming from desperation, from urgency, from control, there's no way to manifest what you want. Because the field picks up on what you feel, what you say. And that's where effort becomes a golden prison. You feel active, busy, productive, but you're spinning in circles, trapped in a vibrational pattern of resistance. Both explain this in an enigmatic but precise way when describing the principle of polarity. He said that every force creates its counterpart. Every intention filled with tension creates its opposition. In other words, the more you try to force a reality, the more resistance it sends back. This is the key that almost no one sees. Excessive effort doesn't bring things closer, it pushes them away. Because to vibrate effort is to vibrate absence. It's to energetically declare that what you desire is still far away, still not yours, still needs to be earned through sacrifice. And that alone keeps the manifestation out of reach. It's not about giving up on action, but giving up on friction. Letting go of the hidden anxiety that drives most people, that feeling that they have to race against time, that if they don't do everything now, they'll miss out. That's not flow, that's fear. And where fear vibrates, creation contracts. Thoth didn't just warn about this. He lived this truth in passages passed down through the oral traditions of Egypt. It said that Thoth taught his disciples to enter deep states of contemplation before taking any action. Because he knew if action doesn't come from inner silence, it comes from confusion, and everything born from confusion returns to it. This is where you begin to understand why so often, when you're doing everything right, things still don't happen. You study, you work, you plan, but inside, The field is misaligned because the foundation is built on fear of failure, on the impulse to rush. And that becomes a constant, silent, sabotaging vibration. But all of this starts to change when you see the trap for what it is. A programmed belief, not destiny, a cultural illusion, not a universal truth. And when you recognize that, a new space opens up. It's in this space that resistance begins to dissolve, without effort, without inner battles, without fighting against time. And it's in this space that Thoth left hidden between the lines of his teachings, the first key to reverse that hidden flow that's pushing away everything you want, the forbidden gesture, the movement that stops force and activates flow. Those called this state, the pre-manifestation, a vibration that comes before any form, before any mental intention, before any stirred-up emotion. It's a subtle field, so subtle that most people go their entire lives without even noticing it. But it's there before the desire, before the action, before the urge to do. And when you touch that point, the world starts to respond. It's hard to explain in words because it's not about thinking positively or repeating phrases. It's a shift in your inner place, a return to what you are, without interference, without hurry, without resistance, a silent mind, a present body, a heart at rest. It's not apathy, it's pure magnetism. And you know what's most impressive? You already know this frequency. You've already been in it, even if only for brief moments. That moment when everything slows down, when time seems suspended, when you feel, without being able to explain, that something is approaching, but you don't need to chase it because it's coming. It's aligning. That's the field, the point where reality starts to reorganize in your favor, not through effort, but through vibrational coherence. And this field isn't activated by technique, but by surrender, a lucid, conscious, active surrender. The simple act of observing without trying to control, without trying to fix, without wanting to speed things up. You breathe. You're there. And that alone is enough for the field to start working on your behalf. In older Hermetic traditions, there were accounts of initiates who would spend days in absolute silence before any act of creation. It wasn't punishment. It was alignment. Because sound only has power when it's born from the right silence. And Thoth recorded this, not in technical manuals, but in the vibrational subtext of his teachings. The first activation of this field happens quietly. You begin to notice small reactions. The body relaxes, the mind slows down, your inner time changes rhythm. And without doing anything, you feel that something is being reorganized, as if an invisible gear starts turning in your favor again. This is the intelligence of the field starting to act. Not because you forced it, but because you got out of the way. That's why so many people, even with all their techniques, practices, and rituals, still can't manifest what they want. Because they're doing it all from a tense place. But when the tension stops, even for just a moment, the field responds. It always responds. It was just waiting for you to be quiet enough to listen. And now that you've started to feel this field vibrating around you, you need to know that it can be strengthened. There's a way to sustain this state and expand it, so it's not just a glimpse, but becomes your natural state of being. This is the point where the gesture appears. A simple gesture contained, silent, but so powerful that it was considered sacred among the ancient initiates. A movement that doesn't invoke, doesn't plead, doesn't beg. It asks nothing of the universe. It simply reveals. It shows that you are already ready, that you no longer need to chase, that you remember. In ancient traditions, this gesture wasn't taught through words. It was passed on through observation, through direct imitation during silent rituals inside the hidden chambers of the temples. Only those who had reached a certain vibrational state could even perceive its existence. And when performed, it didn't create magic. It triggered a memory. Yes, because this gesture has no function. Has meaning. It represents the moment when the seeker stops moving from desire and starts vibrating in certainty. It's like an energetic seal that says it is done. Even before any manifestation appears, the field already recognizes that the decision has been made, and that certainty changes everything. In Hermetic language, this movement symbolizes total surrender to the intelligence of the flow. It's not surrender in the common sense of the word. It's vibrational surrender, where you no longer try to control the paths, the timing, the details. You simply place yourself as a channel, a body safe that carries the seed of manifestation, but doesn't force it to sprout. It holds, it contains, it allows. The most curious thing is that this gesture has no name. The records don't provide any clear designation, but its form appears carved in Egyptian reliefs, depicted in Mesopotamian seals, subtly repeated in Gnostic manuscripts, and even in medieval occult illustrations. Always the same subtle positioning. One hand rests over the center of the chest, while the other gently lowers toward the earth, with the palm facing down. This gesture isn't symbolic, only on the outside. It aligns two magnetic points of the human body. The hand on the chest activates heart coherence, the vibration of presence. The other hand, facing the ground, anchors that vibration in the physical world. It's like saying to the universe, I don't ask, I accept. And something happens in that moment. Something you might be starting to feel right now. The edges of your perception become more sensitive. The sounds around you seem more distant. Your breathing changes rhythm. The mind slows down without you having to tell it to. It's as if the field around you is listening to what you haven't even said yet. Because it is. This gesture, no matter how subtle, doesn't go unnoticed by the vibrational field. It's like a silent signal that you've exited the seeking mode and entered the receiving state. And the most interesting thing is that many times, the field's response begins before you even realize it. Small synchronicities, unexpected reunions, new ideas, internal sensations of peace, subtle signs that something has been activated. And it really has, but not because you made the gesture, rather because by making it, you entered the frequency of someone who no longer needs to prove anything. You stopped moving out of lack and started moving from presence. That is the invisible key that turns desire into magnetism, the surrender point when the universe takes over. And it's precisely in the moment when the gesture is complete, when the field begins to respond to silence instead of effort, that an uncomfortable truth comes to the surface. Because at the same time reality begins to draw closer, you begin to realize what was pushing it away. And that realization hurts because it dismantles all the logic you followed up until now. Both called this the inverted field, a vibrational state where everything you do, even if it seems right, ends up creating the opposite of what you want. And the most dangerous part is that it sets in silently. It forms, comes from excess desire, excess thought, excess doing. And the more you try to solve, to achieve, to accelerate, the further you move from what you're seeking. The inverted field isn't visible. It doesn't shout. It doesn't show up in your words. It hides in your deepest vibrational state. It's like a reversal of your magnetism. You say you want love, but you vibrate fear of rejection. You say you want prosperity, but live trapped in a feeling of lack. You say you're seeking freedom, but feed off anxiety. The field picks this up. It doesn't respond to what you say. It responds to what you are. And this is where many give up. Because when this truth appears, it's uncomfortable. It's easier to believe the world is unfair, that you're unlucky, that others are just lucky. It's more comfortable to keep blaming the external. But when you begin to realize that it was actually your own field vibrating in reverse, you can no longer pretend not to know. That's why Thoth was so direct about this. He said, the universe doesn't punish or reward, it only reflects. And when the reflection is distorted, the mind's first impulse is to try to break the mirror. But the true alchemist doesn't try to change the reflection. He adjusts the vibration of the source. And that source is you. This inversion is subtle, but it can be felt. You've already experienced it, that feeling of chasing something with all your might. And the more you chase it, the further it seems. Or that moment when you decide to let go, to stop, to rest. And suddenly, the answer comes. That's not coincidence. That's the intelligence of the field, showing you what works and what repels. What causes this inverted field is contraction, the inner tension that comes from the idea that something is wrong, that you need to fix it, solve it, force it. And that tension closes the channel. What was ready to come closer moves away. What was already within reach dissolves because the energy you emit communicates more than your actions. And this is the turning point when you recognize that what was pushing things away wasn't the world or people or chance, but the distorted vibration of your own field based in fear, in control, in urgency. That recognition alone already starts to reverse the flow, because the field doesn't need much time to change. It responds the moment you realign. The moment you release the tension, even for a few seconds, the wheel turns, and what felt stuck starts to move without noise, without explanation, without logic, just because you stopped inverting your own energy. And when the field begins to respond, when the subtle signs start to align without you lifting a finger, something inside you realizes effort was never the way. Not because it was wrong, but because it was inverted, forced, controlled. And in that moment, the mind tries to take back control. It wants to understand, to measure, to make sure it's going to work this time. But that's exactly where the next leap happens. Thoth called it the point of surrender, an almost invisible threshold between control and trust, between the mind that wants to dominate everything and the consciousness that finally allows. And the truth is that almost no one crosses this point because it demands a radical internal decision to stop trying to control the universe. Not out of giving up, but because you finally understand that control is the real obstacle. This point has no sign, no ritual. It happens inside, in an instant, in a breath, in one inhale, where you truly let go of the need to understand everything, to predict, to guarantee, to protect. You simply surrender, not to life, but to the intelligence that sustains life. And when that happens, everything changes. It's a silent collapse of the ego. The mind screams, tries to pull you back, says it's dangerous not to plan, not to anticipate, not to control. But the soul knows, it recognizes this moment. It's always been waiting for it. It's the moment when you get out of the way, when you stop interfering with the movement of the field. And once this point is crossed, the vibration shifts frequency so quickly that you can no longer keep up with ordinary senses. You just feel. You feel that things begin to arrive. Not loud, not with fanfare, but with precision. Someone sends a message you no longer expected. A yes appears where there was once silence. A door opens without being pushed. Everything starts turning in your favor without effort. Because now, you've let the universe do what it's always been trying to do. Deliver. This point of surrender is the activation of a new level of spiritual sovereignty, contrary to what you were taught. Surrender isn't bowing down. It's stepping up to the truth that there's a greater order at work, that you no longer need to carry everything on your back, that there's an intelligence so vast, so precise, so subtle. It only acts when you get out of the way. And this is not passivity, it's presence. The presence that vibrates in full coherence with what it wants to attract you. No longer say you trust you. No longer repeat that. It's already yours. You vibrate as if it already is, and that changes the frequency of everything. The ancients knew this in the initiation schools of Egypt. This point was the true marker of passage. Only those who learned to yield could cross the veil. And that surrender wasn't taught with words. It was felt. It was the moment when the initiate stopped seeking power and started living from it. And that's what's beginning to happen with you now. The flow of cat, the frequency that attracts without calling. And when you cross the point of surrender, it's as if the gear that once turned against you starts turning in your favor. But this new movement doesn't come with noise. It's not an explosion of results. It's a softness that settles in like a breeze, changing direction without you noticing. And that change in direction has a name that almost no one knows, Ket. In the oldest records of Egypt, Ket wasn't just a spiritual state. It was a real frequency, vibrational quality so pure that nothing could resist it. It doesn't act like an aggressive magnet, doesn't force, doesn't demand. It simply radiates a presence that draws in everything in harmony with it. And Thoth taught that the true master doesn't seek. He vibrates, and what is compatible comes. No verbal command, no forced intention, no physical movement. It's hard for the mind to understand this because it's been trained to do, to plan, to repeat. But when the body enters the flow of cat, you feel the difference. It's not euphoria, It's a deep calm that comes from within, as if every cell knows it no longer needs to run. And this silent trust alters the field around you, as if your presence begins to reorganize the environment effortlessly. To feel this, no elaborate ritual is needed. What Thoth left was subtle indications, slower breathing, gentle attention to the space between thoughts, a state of contemplation where you don't ask for anything, you simply allow. It's like tuning an instrument. You don't create the music, you just adjust to the vibration already in the air. And the longer you sustain this frequency, the stronger the field becomes. The vibration stabilizes and starts to emit signals. The universe understands without translation. You don't say, "I want this." You vibrate to someone who already has it. And that kind of coherence is irresistible to the flow. Thoth left behind a symbol that represents this vibrational stability. It appears on the tablets as the shape of two interwoven fields, one facing upward, the other downward, held together by a central axis. The symbol shows that the flow doesn't come from outside, but from the inside out. And once sealed, it not only activates the field, it protects it. Because when this frequency settles in, a new reality begins to bend around you. It's subtle, but real. People begin to hear you differently. Situations that once seemed stuck begin to shift without your intervention. Time feels more flexible. Paths that were closed start to open. And it's not a coincidence. It's the field responding to the coherence of your new inner state. This is the point where many people go into shock, because everything they tried to achieve for years through effort begins to approach them without warning, without explanation. And the mind doesn't accept this easily. It wants to understand. It wants to name it. It wants to take back control. And that's where the danger lies. Because the mind will try to sabotage this flow. It'll push you back into effort. It'll tell you it's luck, that it's an illusion, that it won't last. This is the final test. The moment when the field is finally flowing, but the mind begins to doubt. It starts interfering. It tries. Is to measure the invisible with the ruler of logic. And if you don't know how to quiet this sabotage, everything starts to close again. The law of thought flow. Don't force, and the world bends to your being. And if you manage to silence the mind's last attempt to take back control, something very rare begins to happen, a subtle but deep shift throughout your entire field. You stop emitting signals of lack, urgency, and control, and start emitting presence, a vibration so stable, so secure, so clear that the universe has no choice but to respond. And it's at this point that you become what the ancients called the golden receptacle. This state isn't symbolic. It's real. You feel it in your body. Anxiety disappears, not because you convinced yourself everything will work out, but because you're no longer trying to make it work. Doubt loses strength, not because you got external proof, but because your vibration became the proof. And in that frequency, everything begins to arrive. But not like magic, it's an inevitable consequence. The right love appears not because you searched for it, but because it recognized your vibration. The right money comes not through effort, but through alignment. The right answers show up, not because you pushed for them, but because your mind was quiet enough to hear. At this point, you stop seeking, and you start being sought. You realize that everything that seemed scarce was actually just a reflection of a misaligned internal vibration. But now, with your field stabilized, things flow so naturally. It might feel like coincidence, but it's not. It's resonance. The universe is dancing to the same rhythm as you, because you finally stopped trying to lead the music and became the sound. But there's one detail that can't be ignored, a sacred rule, a vibrational limit that, if crossed, undoes everything. Because just as the field is built in silence, it can also be broken by the slightest movement of doubt, urgency, or attachment. Thoth was clear. Once activated, the golden receptacle cannot be used as a tool for control. It must be sustained as a state of being. If you try to use it to attract something, you've already fallen out of the frequency, because wanting is already declaring absence. And this state only holds when you are fully in the now, when you don't need to prove anything, when you're not waiting for the miracle because you're already living as if it happened. And now, if you've made it this far, something important needs to be revealed. Not as a new technique, but as a reminder. What Thoth called the law of non-effort is not a suggestion. It is a real structure of the universe, a silent mechanism that only works when you stop forcing. This law is not mental, it's vibrational. And the more you try to make something happen, the more it pulls back. The more you insist, the more it delays. Not as punishment, but because it only responds to coherence. It doesn't negotiate, it mirrors. And now that you've activated this field, you begin to notice movement around you, bending to your frequency. What once avoided you now comes closer. What once seemed distant starts to appear. You're no longer in seeking mode. You're in receiving mode. And this is when you understand with your body what no book could ever teach you. It's not about doing, it's about becoming. Thoth's forbidden technique was never a formula. It was a frequency, a way of being in the world where everything happens without you needing to chase it, where the world bends to your vibration. And now that vibration has been activated, you can go back to effort. Let the mind convince you that you need to speed up again, or you can keep flowing, conscious, steady, intentional. Because right now, what you want has already started to want you too. If you've made it this far, it's because this truth resonated with something deep inside you. So write in the comments, "I entered the flow." This phrase isn't just symbolic, it's an activation. Every person who writes it strengthens this field we're creating together. And if you'd like to support this channel more directly so that more people can awaken and receive content like this, there's a link in the first pinned comment below for you to contribute to this mission. Every bit of support helps this message reach more and more minds ready to remember. And look, I've prepared a special video that's now showing up on your screen. That's the next step. It's where we go deeper into everything you felt here. Click the video and meet me there. You won't want to stop at this point.